As a coach, how do you structure your coaching calls so that your clients are able to get what they need, you have a very productive call, and after the call, your clients are able to go out there and take action and get results? That is what we are going to talk about today. So let's jump right in. Starting from the beginning of the call. So there are two ways that I like to structure a call, and the way depends on your experience as a coach and your client's experience in terms of how much coaching they've received already. The first way is if you are more confident in your ability to lead a coaching call, no matter where it starts, and your coaching client has more experience themselves being coached, so they're more self-aware, they're more aware of what they need help with, and are able to lead from that place. In that case, I would recommend starting by simply asking your client, what would you like support with today? Because they're already going to know coming in, hey, I have these list of questions I want to go over. I want to get your thoughts on these things, and I want to make sure I leave the call with A, B, and C. A more experienced coaching client will be able to do that. If that's not the case, then I would recommend starting with the second way, which we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about today, and that is to come onto the call letting your client know what you're going to be covering today. So if it's your first call with a client, it could be that you've reviewed their welcome questionnaire, you have a plan of action that you want to go over with them. So you're going to let them know, this is what we're going to cover in our time together, overall, not just in this call. This is what you can expect from our calls and anything else that you provide. And today specifically, this is what we're going to cover. In general, our calls will follow this format. So I would start with sharing those things. Now, when you're talking about what you're going to cover in a call, I would recommend keeping it to just about 2 to 3 big topics max. Any more than that, and honestly, it gets way too overwhelming. So for example, if you are a health coach, maybe on one call you decide to go over that client's eating habits and then identify the top areas that they're struggling with and then coach them specifically on those areas in terms of foods they could use to replace their go-to junk foods, some maybe mental coaching tips to help them overcome their emotions and their mindset when they're feeling the need or desire to go binge. That's just one example, but it applies no matter what type of coaching you do. So of course, within that structure, there are going to be lots of details that you're going to want to share, and you're going to want to talk through the specifics and pull them out with your coaching client, but you're going to have that overall structure so that your client is going to be able to walk away from the call knowing, okay, we talked through just these 2 or 3 things. I have my clear ahas, and that's all I need to focus on. If you try and cram in too much, your client's going to forget. They're going to feel overwhelmed. They're going to wonder what to do, and it's not going to be a very effective session. So that is the first place that I would start. Now, the next thing that I recommend doing is as you're talking through everything, to put dates as much as possible to every single thing that you talk through. Otherwise, when something's up in the air, it can get put off and then it gets eventually forgotten. So it could literally be, hey, for the next 2 weeks, every day, I want you to practice eating this one thing. I want you to practice noticing when you're full. For me, as I am a business coach, what I would do during my sessions is I would map out the plan of action for someone to take. So let's say we are working on a new marketing campaign for that person. I would say, okay, within your webinar, if they're using a webinar, this week we are going to focus on really nailing that outline, that logical argument to make the webinar flow. By the end of this week, I want to see that first draft over to me. I will get a feedback to you within the next 24 business hours after you send it to me. And I want to see draft number 2 within 3 days of that. Again, that's just an example so that you can see you are mapping it out very clearly so that it's not, hey, you should do this, but you do it whenever it feels good to you. It might never feel good to them. Now, when it comes to how much detail you cover with whatever you're talking through on the call, if you are a newer coach and you don't have a ton of content created and you're still learning how to coach yourself, what I would recommend is to talk that client through the actual content on your coaching call. So you will talk to them through the actual teaching content. Like if you're a health coach, teaching them the principles of how to eat, what nutrients they need, and all the basics of that. As a business coach in the beginning, I would coach a client through how to set their marketing, how to write their website, how to do every single thing. And so that might mean that you would need longer coaching calls and more frequent coaching calls in the beginning. So as a new coach, I did 1 hour calls every single week for my packages with my clients. I don't have to do that nowadays because over time, what you're going to do is you're going to realize that you are talking about the same kinds of stuff for all of your clients at certain times. So it could be that the first call, you always cover this thing. The second call, you always cover this thing, and so on. And so what you'll be able to do is, and this does not have to be fancy, it can literally be just in some Google documents. All you need is the content to be good. The format doesn't really matter. To put the content that you find yourself repeating over and over with your clients into Google documents so that then you can start telling a client on a call, okay, today we're gonna go over this thing. And after our call, I want you to go and review this document that I've linked for you and already created here, and then do the to-dos from that document and then send me your answers so that you spend more time giving them feedback on the coaching call, which is ultimately much more powerful and valuable versus just teaching them. And that saves you from getting bored as well, so that you're not repeating the same things over and over to every single client. And then as you have that content, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to reduce the length of your calls from maybe an hour to 45 minutes, maybe to 30 minutes in the future, and the frequency of your calls. So maybe because you don't have to spend so much time teaching content on a call, you're able to move from weekly calls to a call every 2 weeks. And that'll just make it easier for you as time goes on. So that's something to keep in mind depending on where you are with your coaching experience and in your coaching business. Now, the next thing that I like to do is I like to break down the to-dos in as tangible a way as possible for my clients so that even if we already have dates for the big milestones that they need to cover, it's even simpler than that. Literally, it can be every day you are going to, and I'm just going to give a random example of business coaching. I might say, okay, we're growing your email list. Every day, I want you to write 1 email and do it in less than 30 minutes because we're working on improving your relationship with your audience and your email writing skills. Then once a week, I want you to go out there and connect with 10 potential business partners so that you can start building those relationships, get those affiliates, and grow your audience. And then I want to see that same email repurposed into content for your other main channel or created in some new format for that channel. Again, that's just giving you a very simplified example, but you can see it literally is every single day, do this, do that. That's the way I prefer to have things broken out for me, to be honest, so that I don't get overwhelmed. And because I'm like that, I tend to attract clients who are like that as well. And so whatever you like to do in terms of your productivity, most likely you're going to want to start there because we tend to attract clients like ourselves. So keeping it super, super simple. Now, what I like to do is this comes with practice, but I keep an eye on the time. The thing is, if you want to, from time to time, go over the amount of time that you have on a call, that's fine. That's up to you and your client. However, it should not be the norm for you to be going over the call time every single call. It should not be something that your client expects you to do as well. This is not about not providing value. Frankly, this is. It's because if your calls start going over too long, they become more burdensome and overwhelming for you. You're not going to look forward to them because it's going to feel like, okay, I have a 1 hour call on the calendar, but I know this is going to actually be 3 hours. It's also going to feel overwhelming to your client as well because You might feel it's valuable as the coach to get more time with you, but frankly, who wants to sit through a 3-hour long call? We want to get on a call, get what we need, and then go on with our day. And so it's your job as a coach to be able to monitor that call, to pull back on when something isn't helping a client move forward. So a really common example is if a client is starting to complain a lot about how things aren't working and how things suck. Yes, let them kind of share what they're feeling, but spending 20 minutes on that is not helpful to anybody. It's just negative thinking. And so I would hear out that client in just a few minutes, and then I would, as the coach, step in and say something like, I hear you. I understand this is painful. I know this is something that we all go through on this process. I want you to know you're heard, you're supported, and we're going to make sure you get through it. However, it's not helpful for you to stay in this place and just kind of wallow, because that's not going to help you move forward. So let's focus on how we shift you out of this. So you are going to practice leading that conversation and transitioning so that you know what to spend time on during the call as the coach and what to not spend time on, because it's not helpful to anybody. So that's something you're going to want to practice throughout. And then you're going to get good also at knowing about how much time it takes you to cover a certain topic, answer a certain type of question, so that it just becomes very intuitive for you. Nowadays, these are not things I even think about consciously, frankly, on a call. I just go through it, but it happened through conscious practice in the beginning. And so you're going to do that. And with about 10 minutes before the end of the call, what you're going to do is you're going to do a recap. You're going to say, hey, okay, so to make sure you're really clear on what's next, you're going to do this, this, and this. You're going to send me this, this, and this, so that on our next call, we're going to go over this, this, and this. So you have a very clear structure, no matter what kind of coaching you do, where your client also understands, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is where I am, and I have very tangible to-dos. And then after that, because you have 10 minutes, you've left that amount of time to be able to ask, all right, so I want to take a step back. We've covered a lot today. What questions are coming up for you? Or just in general, what's coming up for you? And then that's going to let the client make sure that they have enough time to ask any wrap-up questions, get clear on something, share anything else that's coming up for them. And that is usually enough time to make sure that you cover everything and so that you end right on time. I will say, if you find a client consistently going over, what I would do is you don't need to make a big deal out of like, oh my gosh, hey client, you got to respect my time and we can't be doing this. I would just do a little nudge like, hey, I know we're coming up on our time. I want to make sure that we respect both your time and mine. So I want to make sure that you get what you need from this call. What else do we need to cover to make sure that you walk away with everything you need until our next call? Something like that, where you are leading, but it's not so much a heavy-handed way that makes your client feel really negative about themselves, or like they can't ask you and get all the support that they need. They absolutely can. It's just about being efficient with it so that you guys have the best relationship and best results possible. So that's how I would structure a call, and I hope you've gotten a lot out of that. If that's something that you're working on and you're also in the process of building your coaching business to about 5K to 10K consistently per month, what I highly recommend is that you check out my next video on how to do exactly that. The only few key things that you need to take your coaching business to consistent 5K to 10K months. I think you'll be surprised at the things that matter and all the other things that don't. So I hope you get a lot out of it, and I will see you in that video.